Okay, everyone, we might get started now. So there's still a few people to come, but they can join in late, as what happened with the Kokoda one that we did last week. So I'm just going to go through some really basic goal setting stuff today. A few people have done this with me before. I've added a few little bits into it, but this is a start point, I guess, for understanding our goals and how to get to them and all that sort of stuff. So feel free to take notes, but if you want notes afterwards or you want some of the actual pro formas I use, just drop me an email. So you'll all have that now based on what was sent out to you for those that don't know me. And for those that do, well, you, of course, know how to get in touch with me. So the main focus of this was initially to help some of the Christie's Angels out. So I know some of them have been struggling at the 8-week mark of the program, and how do we sort of keep our motivation through that long term? But of course, we've opened it up to other people, and there are a few non-angels there and a few adventurous type people. I even noticed Paula on again from over in Perth. So hey, Paula. Just some quick housekeeping. If those haven't done a webinar before, on the right-hand side of your screen or wherever it pops up for you, there's a little hand icon. So if you've ever got a question, you just hit that so I know that you're asking a question. You can type a question in there because I've got you all muted. Otherwise, we end up with everyone talking at the same time. And I can come to you with that question. If I don't get the right answer for you, then I'll just take you off mute as an individual and we can have a chat then just to make sure we're all on par with each other. So for those on the call that don't know who I am, I'll just give you a little brief history about myself. Glenn Azar is the name. I spent 17 years of my life in the Army. I participated in boxing all of my life, and this was my last professional fight. And then more recently, I started the Fighting Fit Gym, which I started 12 years ago, and I just sold at the end of last year. And so that was a pretty exciting period of life for me, where I got to use all the skills I used both in the military and boxing to train corporate people. And then over the last 10 and 12 years also, I've been really involved in the adventure games. So initially with a company called Executive Excellence, which I bought a share of, and then more recently going out into my own brand, Adventure Professionals. So I'm just clicking up onto the screen now. You can see all of the logos. They're just the businesses I've been involved with over the last sort of decade, locally in Toowoomba, and then with the Adventure brand all around the world. So my daughter's in the bottom right there, who some people may or may not know has been trying to climb Mount Everest. Unfortunately, was there this year and it didn't quite go to plan. But we'll use that goal setting stuff, I guess, that we use to talk you through this process. It doesn't matter how big the goal is, the outcome is much the same. One of the sayings you see a lot, particularly amongst personal trainers, is this dream, believe, and achieve. And I quite like the concept. I just feel like it's missing that one really important part, and that's action. Because you can dream about something, you can believe you're going to achieve something, and all that sort of stuff. But if you don't take action, then you're never really going to get anywhere. So action's the most important thing that we're going to talk about tonight, I guess, that links all of this goal setting stuff together. It was Anthony Robbins who's actually coined the phrase that a goal is a dream with an action attached to it. And that's how important it is. So it is just a dream otherwise. Things that we're going to cover tonight, we're going to go through setting your big five. We're also going to go through SMART goals, which is a really basic goal setting formula. And I'd imagine most of you may or may not have heard of those before. I'm going to take that a step further with the SMARTer goals. So there is a little bit extra to learn, and a slightly different model called the GROW model. So these are just different models that we use to help systemize our goal setting, I guess. So this isn't the real sexy stuff, but it does work. So we'll talk a little bit more about motivating and all those sort of things in future webinars. But for tonight, very basic and just covering how we go about our goal setting. And I'll finish off just with how I might be able to help you for those that are looking for that little bit extra. So understanding your goals, and I'd like you to think a little bit about your big five, tonight. If you've got a piece of paper, write them down. But my big five for me is, at the beginning of every year, mostly I write down what are the 5 things that I'd most like to achieve this year. To make it the best year ever. So even with the next 6 months, and you can break that into smaller pieces, if I take on a fitness program or if I start a course of some sort, or I always try and think, what do I want to get out of this effectively? So The big five is just a broader version of that. What do I want to get out of this year? And these things they can be personal, and they can be professional, and they can be around yourself or your family, all sorts of things, really. So just for now, for the next few minute or so, just consider what sort of five things you'd like to achieve in the next 6 months, I guess, and maybe write them down to just get a handle on what your goals are. Because if you don't understand where you're going, as I said in the initial slide, then how are you going to know when you get there? And a quick story I like to tell people about this is I've got a mate who towards the end of every year seems to get a little bit down on himself about, just about life in general. And it's always October, Novemberish. And I said to him once about 2 years ago, you always get down around this same time of year. And what's that about? And he said, well, I'm just not where I wanted to be this year. And I said, well, where did you want to be? And he said, oh, well, I don't know, but I didn't want to be here. And I sort of laughed. And I think there's so many people like that where we don't really know where we're going, but then at the end of the year, we're not happy with our year, but we didn't know where we were going in the first place. So it's quite an interesting thing. And I'm sure I've been there, and we probably all have at some stage. You have to have things to aim for with fitness programs and the like. Most people start a fitness program to lose some weight, and then they lose a little bit of weight, and then they lose a little bit of more. Maybe they feel a little bit better about themselves, but sometimes you need more. Now, most of you would know that I'm involved in the adventure game, and so for me, I deal with people who use adventures as a way of setting a goal. So I'm going to do the Aussie 10 Peaks. It's a 4-day adventure, and it's in October. So now they've got something to start training towards. The Kokoda track, a little bit more physical, a little bit longer, that sort of thing. So you've got things that you can aim for. If you're not enjoying time at work, but you know that it's long-term is that, hey, I'm going to go dog sledding in January, and that's what I'm saving towards, then it makes probably the other things a little bit more bearable. Other things I like to put onto my little wish list is every year outside of my adventures, just to visit another country. So it doesn't matter if it's Bali or Fiji or if it's to America, wherever, just go somewhere for a holiday. People often use fun runs. You can start as little as 5Ks. You can run a marathon. It's really up to you what you do with it. There's all sorts of obstacle course, adventure races, things you can do with fitness. I like to see people, certainly through Fighting Fit, take family challenges. I know in Toowoomba, and I know you're not all from Toowoomba, but in Toowoomba they have the Peak to Park, which has a 4 and a 10K version, and lots of families get involved. So they take the kids out and do the 4K version, which is pretty cool. So that starts to involve the whole family. So the next thing we do once we've written down our big five, and I believe in writing things down because otherwise it's just in your head, it's more of a dream, is then understanding what it actually means. I'll put up here what most people write because this is just very generalised, but most people write something about getting fitter or losing weight, improving their health, certainly at the beginning of the year. Most people have something to do with their work, as in, they want to get a promotion or they, want to earn more money. A lot of people put spending more time with their family. I think people write that because it's the right thing to put down. And it's not that they don't want to spend more time with family, but when you look at their schedules, I think the truth is in the detail about how much time they actually do spend with families. So it's a very broad, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. Building a stronger or more successful business is often a good one, and I know that's one that I've written down many times. But all of those things are fairly useless if you don't have some sort of way of knowing how you're tracking. So the first thing I'll do tonight is just introduce you to what we call the SMART principle. And you can use this for anywhere. You can use this for business things. You can use this for personal things. And I'll put them all up. So the specific side of it is who, what, when, where, and why. So rather than saying, I want to get fitter, make it more specific. I want to be able to run 5 kilometres non-stop. I want to lose X amount of centimetres. I want to run, I want to lose X amount of weight if it's a weight thing. Whatever it is, you need to be really specific. Because to say, I just want to get fitter doesn't really mean anything. If you do 1 push-up today and 2 push-ups tomorrow, then technically you're fitter already. So does that mean you stop for the rest of the year? Well, of course not. It needs to be measurable, so there needs to be some sort of criteria for measuring. So let's stick with the fitness one because it's a simple one. If I say that I want to run 5K, so I've made it specific, I then make it measurable because the distance is measurable. I can then put a time frame on it as well, which we'll come to. So I can say, I want to run 5Ks non-stop and I want to do it at the end of this 12-week program. So that could be your one goal when you're doing a 12-week fitness program, as an example. Other things are going to come your way, but that's the one specific and measurable thing you're using. It needs to be achievable. So you need to be able to find goals that are important to you, that are empowering to you, and that you actually want to go after. And by that, I mean, there's no sense writing a goal that you think other people will think is cool. It's got to be something that gets you going, because you'll only push yourself so far to keep other people happy. Sooner or later, that's just not going to be enough. So achievable to me means that it needs to be something that means something to you. It needs to be realistic, and realistic means willing and able. And by that, I mean it needs to be something that you're willing and able to do. So you know that if you're not much of a runner and you're intending to run 5Ks and you want to do it non-stop in 12 weeks' time, but you know sure as eggs that you are not going to get out of bed early every morning and you're not going to put the effort in, are you willing and able to do it? So it's very easy for people to sort of set a goal and then know straight away, they know that they're not willing and able, if they're being honest with themselves, to do it. They're not really going to put the work in. They've got no right to be disappointed at the other end of it. But worse than that, they've set themselves up for failure, because failure and success are self-feeding animals. So if you fail at something, then this happens a lot with goal setting. People don't like goal setting because I set goals and it doesn't mean anything because I never got there anyway. They probably just didn't set them properly, or they failed. So I'm just not a runner, or I just can't do this, or I just can't do that. And it's not really true. So again, realistic is willing and able. Tangible means taste, touch, smell, sight, hearing. It needs to be something that that you can put something around. So it can't be an airy fairy, hey, I want to get fitter. There's nothing tangible about I want to get fitter. There's nothing tangible about I want to spend more time with my kids or with my family. Tangible means that you need to be able to see it and do it. So a family goal as well as a fitness goal is another really good one. Actually schedule time in. I used to be on my phone 24 hours a day. People could contact me and they knew it. At 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, if they wanted me, they called me, and that's what I viewed as customer service in the very, very early days of the gym when I was the only trainer there. And then I started to realise that I was cutting time away from spending time with the kids as they were growing up. So I started to turn my phone off on a Sunday and just not turning it on until that night. So that made it more tangible for me, because now my phone just wasn't on. It wasn't an option. Eventually, people got used to that and they stopped calling me on Sundays. And to this day, I don't really get calls on a Sunday. So that's just a practical example of how I've used that, I guess. So I did this a little bit through that bit there, but if we want to be more specific about those goals that we wrote up a couple of screens ago, get in shape. If I want to be more specific, I say I'm going to exercise 3 times a week. If in 2 or 3 weeks' time you drop off, you know straight away you've dropped off, and you can pick it up again the next week. Because if you do one exercise session this week, you know that you've fallen off the train. Time to get back on. Increasing my business knowledge, instead of writing something like that, or get a promotion, or I'll set myself something like I'm going to commence a course. I'm going to read one best-selling book this month that is relevant to my work. And of course, that's measurable. It covers all of those SMART goals. Improving relationships, spouse, kids, workmates, whatever it be. Like I said there, in a family sense, it's every Sunday is family day, or spend 30 minutes extra a week just to talk and listen to the kids, read a book, that sort of stuff. So what I'm going to do now is just take you very quickly through an action plan. Now, this is actually taken from a plan that I have, that I use when I'm setting my goals. So I've got this pro forma. If anyone wants it, just email me and I'm happy to shoot it through to you. Now, I start off with the area. So we'll go from the top left. And the area is normally health and fitness, or personal, or whatever it might be. So what area it's about. Today's date, so that's the date that I've decided that I'm going to chase this goal. And then I'll lay the goal out according to the SMART principles. Now, here's where it gets a little bit trickier, I guess, but you have to think about it. But really, really important is, what are the benefits to be gained or the losses to be avoided? Because if you can understand what you're going to win or lose out of chasing this goal, you'll soon decide if it means enough to you to chase it. So this comes back to our being willing or able. So if you can list out all the benefits and you can list out all the losses, you'll soon decide if that goal means enough to you. Everything worth chasing is going to have an obstacle. So the next thing is to write down or preempt what are some of the obstacles going to be to getting out of bed early in the morning to run, to spending more time with kids or whatever it might be. Find out what the obstacles are, write them down so you're aware of them in your brain, and then start to work on possible solutions. Because if you can preempt the problem, when it pops up, you can say, hey, I expected this, I thought about it, and I've already got a solution for it. And I think that's a really important step when you're getting down to the nitty-gritty of goals. I'll then normally look at specific action steps. So in the case of, I wrote one there, it was about starting a course or reading a book. So starting a course, my specific action steps will be tomorrow morning when I've come out of this talk, first thing I'm going to do tomorrow morning is ring around at the different TAFEs and universities and look for a course that I want to do that's going to help me. So that's just getting the information. The next step is to go through all the information I get. Third step would be to actually enroll in a course. And then I'll put down a final target date of when I would like to achieve this goal by. So if it's enrolling in a course, that's a pretty simple one. You can set that target date for a week or two away. Long term, if it's about actually finishing a uni degree, which I know there's a uni student or two on here, you're going to be 4 years down the track. Well, that's your final target date to completing, but there's some steps in between. The method of tracking to me is a really good one. One of the best methods of tracking whether you're on track or off track is to tell someone, and to tell someone who's probably a bit critical of you, so that when as soon as you fall off the wagon, they go, oh, so how's that exercise program going that you're telling me about? How's that fun run that you're going to go into? Someone that you'd feel might put a bit of pressure on you if you don't tend to follow through. It could be just writing down in a diary and keeping track of it yourself. It depends what motivates you. So there's no right or wrong way to go about that one. Probably one of the most important ones is it worth it to me? So you need to work out if this goal is worth it to you. So whether you're willing and able to do what has to be done to achieve it. And you need to have a real, well, what I call a gut check. You need to be really honest with yourself. If you don't think it's worth it, you just need to say so. And you need to probably look for a different goal, because if it's not worth it to you at some point, or if you're doing it for someone else, at some point when the going gets tough, you are going to give up. And then you're going to be back onto that same wagon that you're on before. Affirmations, to me, for those of you that have ever read about or studied NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, affirmations used to be about, tapping yourself in the forehead and saying a word over and over and over until it got locked in. I'm not big on that, but affirmations to me, I try and find a quote that means something to me about this specific goal, and I'll write that quote down and stick it somewhere. So you can stick it on a mirror, you can put it on a vision board, you can put it somewhere where you'll see it, just on a sticky note. The idea there is it's a quote that maybe everyone else reads it and says, oh, that's a pretty cool quote, but it doesn't mean anything to them. But your brain can attribute it to this specific goal. And every time you see that quote, it's reminding you about this goal and how important this goal is to you. And that's a way stronger way of doing things than you probably realise. So don't underestimate that one. And the final one, if we get it all right, is the date achieved. And it's pretty cool to keep record of these things and actually achieve things. Any big long-term goal needs to have a series of smaller goals that are set out like this when you're really serious. That's how you set up a business, things that mean something to us, but it's also the way we can do a lot of other things. The SMARTER principle simply goes through the same as before: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and tangible, and then it adds in evaluate and revise. So evaluate is to actually evaluate whether the method we're using is working for us, or whether the goal is working for us and we're still happy with it. And then if it is or isn't, revise our plan. So if it's not working, let's revise the plan. If it is working, let's keep doing what we're doing. So often people get on a track and they think that this is what they want to achieve, and they bang away at it for month after month, for year after year, without getting any specific result. And if they're really honest, they're probably not that interested anymore. But we get this idea that, well, I've started, so I may as well keep going down this road. But you know what? There's no time like today to change track if you're not happy with what you're doing. Because in 5 years' time, you're still not going to be happy. So you need to make a decision at some stage, I guess, whether it's worth it to you, when to bail out. You can't just keep making the same mistake over and over and expect a different result. The GROW principle is slightly different, I guess, and it's slightly more broad. And it's a principle I use early on with a lot of coaching I do with people. So whilst I study life coaching, and I think that's a pretty broad sort of word, and I actually don't like it. I believe what I do is success coach people. So I coach people to be better at whatever it is they want to be better at. And it doesn't matter if it's losing weight, if it's running 5Ks, if it's setting up a business, if it's having better relationships with their kids, whatever. I'll help them get through that. And I'll generally start with the GROW principle because it's very broad. And the GROW principle is about agreeing on the goal, the short term, and make sure that that short-term goal is aimed at the long term. So what is it you want to achieve today when we chat, and where is that going to get you in the long term? What's your long-term goal? Then we talk about the realities, which is, what is the problem and how does it manifest itself? And what are the solutions that I've found so far, or what solutions have I tried to find that haven't worked? That's really important. I try to deal with under realities as well. I try to deal with the things that are happening now. So I don't deal in hypotheticals. Often when people come to me, they'll say, what if this happens and what if that happens? Well, you're trying to solve a problem that hasn't happened yet. And you'll often talk yourself out of chasing a goal based on the what ifs. So keep it real. And if a problem pops up, then let's discuss it. But don't go with what ifs. I mentioned before working your way through possible obstacles and those sort of things. That's a little bit different. These are sort of known obstacles from previous experiences chasing these goals. But the what ifs are where I really want to set up this business, but what if people don't come and buy the product? Or what if the rent's too high? Or what if it all falls over? And you're actually creating problems for yourself that haven't happened yet. So that's my thoughts on that. And it's very, very easy to talk yourself out of doing things. If you look for that, for the feedback to say you shouldn't do something, you'll find it. If you look for the feedback to say you should, you'll find it as well. What you focus on is what you get. So the next one, the GROW principle, is to look at your options. So what options have I got available to me to achieve that goal now? So we understand what the problem is. We understand how it manifests itself. We've looked for possible solutions. We've found some things that work a little bit. So what other options are out there? Sometimes talking to someone else, be it me or a friend or someone that you can be really open with, you'll find options that you haven't even thought of. You just need to be willing to think outside of your little box, because we've all got a very different map of the way the things we've experienced in the world. So we view things differently. Someone else may have been through this problem and found a really easy solution. For me personally, I find, when I go to New Guinea or places like that where I have no phones, no computers, anything that I think is a problem, I generally come up with a solution. And I think it's because I get all this free time to have a think, and you don't have all this extra stuff coming into your head, your emails going off, your phone ringing constantly with all these little fires you've got to put out. You have time to think about what you think is a big problem, and you find a really simple solution, and all of a sudden you get home feeling much more relaxed. So maybe meditation or those sort of things could be a similar thing you could do at home, where you put your phone away for an hour, hour and a half, and actually have a think about the problem and think about the option of how you're going to get through it. And then the last one is the will to act. So it's about developing specific actions, identifying the obstacles that you've experienced in the past, and if you need support of people, ask for it. So many people try and go through life achieving things on their own, when the truth is that there's plenty of people out there that would support you. You've got your family and your friends and your husbands and wives and whatever. There's people out there that are willing to support you. People would like to see you succeed. So one of my favourite sayings is the one that I've just put up now, that the world wants you to win, so stop getting in the way, or stop getting in your own way. I'm not a big subscriber to this idea that the world's out to get us. The world's not. The world just is what it is. Things are happening. Everyone's out looking after themselves, and no one's trying to stop you from succeeding at anything. So if you look around for the people to support you, you'll find them. If you look around for people who want you to succeed, you'll find them. If you find that you're hanging around with people who aren't helping you succeed, then you need to find new people to hang around. It's that simple. It's not you that's the problem. It's the people you're hanging around. Maybe you just don't mix together. So here's 3 of my favourite steps to get me back on track, and I hope they work for you as well. If I find I'm not happy with where I'm at with something, there's a few things you can do. The first one is raise your standards. So be better at whatever it is. If you're not achieving the result you want, and it's in an area you want to achieve a result, then your standards aren't good enough. So you need to be better. Don't look to other people. It's not circumstances. It's not the world. It's not your neighbours. It's not the people you work with. It's you. You need to change something. And whether it's changing where you work, changing the people you hang around, or just being better at whatever it is, just raise your standards. So this is really confronting, but it's about, as I say, calling bullshit on yourself. The next one is change your limiting beliefs. So if you've raised your standards, you're working as hard as you can, and you're just not getting the result you want, there's something holding you back, and you need to work out what it is. And I help people do this all the time. So find yourself a coach, find yourself a really good friend, someone that you can trust who can help you break through that. But you need to find out what is holding you back, because if you're doing everything as best you can and you're not getting the result, then something's holding you back. And the third one, as I mentioned before, don't be scared to change your strategy. If what you're doing is not working, look for another way to do it. Look for what we call mirroring. So find someone else who has achieved something in a similar field, find out how they did it, and then try to copy that, with your putting your own spin on it towards your own goal. But the clues of success are found in other people who have succeeded, because they've been through the tough times, I guarantee it. There's no such thing as an overnight success. So find out what it is that someone else has done and then try and mirror that to achieve your own results. So be willing to change your strategy. Don't be so pig-headed that you're just going to keep banging away on the same strategy and hoping that your result will change. So those are my 3 keys for getting back on track. Raise your standards, change your limiting belief, whatever it is that's holding you back, and if necessary, change your strategy. So just a quick one, how I can help you. If anyone ever needs any help, just contact me. Obviously, that's not what tonight's about. And for those doing Christie's Angels, of course, you've got access to Christie and myself all the time anyway. But if I can ever help anyone else, it's what I do. It's a hobby as much as anything else, and I love it. So I do that privately with people, email, phone, Skype, one-on-one. I catch up with people. I'm coaching quite a few people at the moment, and they'll be either weekly or monthly catch-ups, depending. There's a guy I see in Brisbane, and it's every 6 or 8 weeks. It's just when he feels there's something that he needs to talk through that he can't get through with his work colleagues. And for me, it's about adventures, heading on adventure challenges, which a few of you on this call have been on, through my brand Adventure Professionals. I find that it helps people to goal set, and it helps me to get them to where they need to be. So the final thing I'll go through tonight is just future webinars that we'll be doing, and this whole webinar thing is fairly new to us, but it's a way of touching more people. So I did one last week, and some of you were in on that, about Kokoda. Coming up, we're going to do a few. So Christy will do one specifically about clean eating and what it is, and taking away the myths of what clean eating is. So don't be scared of that word paleo or buy into all the hype. It's just about non-processed foods and different ways of cooking and stuff, and she'll talk you through that. I'm going to advance this goal-setting stuff. This was very, very basic tonight to give you just a base handle, because you need this knowledge to go forward. But I'm going to do 6 simple success strategies, so keep an eye out for those. I'll do a separate one about better time management, and that's really quite linked to goal setting. So it's about understanding how to manage your time better and using the goal-setting formula, I guess. And then we're going to do a Q&A. So these are 4 different webinars, of course. We're going to do a Q&A on exercise and nutrition. And I guess we're going to do it from the point of view of why we do what we do with Christie's Angels program, and with PTs and stuff that we've used. But that'll be a really good one. And if you've got questions for, or any of these things really, if you've got questions for, email us before we start the webinars, a week out or whatever, and we can bring those questions to the table to make sure that everyone shares from that knowledge. So that's the basis of what's coming up over the next few weeks for us. So stay tuned for those. I guess now I will hand over to you guys and see if anyone's got any questions on what we went through tonight. I know it was very basic, but if you've got something that you'd like to ask, just whack your little hand up in that side panel there, or type it into the little questions box, and I'm more than happy to answer those for you. If not, then I guess that's the basis. I hope you got something out of that tonight. I really do. I am very passionate about this stuff. I get very excited very easily when it comes to this stuff, because, I spent the first 30 years of my life just stuffing around. I love being in the army and I love the things I've done, but I had no clear direction. And it was only when I started fighting fit, and it was only when I did my first Kokoda crossing with some mates, back in the 90s, that I started to get an understanding about how much more I could do with myself. So I felt like I wasn't achieving enough, and how much more I could do for other people. And that's, well, I won't say it's a crusade that I'm on, but I do bang on about it a lot because I'm very, very passionate about it. So I hope that you got something out of it. And if there's any way that I can help you in the future, please let me know. And feel free to share the webinars with other people, because we'll do more of them. They're always free, and they're just something that we're really enjoying doing. So I guess that's it from me tonight. Christy's just been listening in tonight, but she'll be running the next one, which will be the clean eating webinar. So she's a little bit excited about that, and hopefully that will help people as well. And as I said, feel free to share, and thanks for coming along tonight. There's no questions there, so I'll let everyone get out of here. I'll have a recording of this if anyone wants it later. Okay, guys, thanks for that, and we'll talk to you all soon.